Cosmopolitan Traveller guys. Today I'm with a special friend of mine,
Mark Lambert.
Mark Lambert. Amazing. Mark, thank you very much. That was gorgeous, amazing. And
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Good acoustics in this hall.
Yeah, pretty well, not bad. So Mark, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm an American musician. I've been living in Brazil for the past 15 years. The first 13 were in Rio de Janeiro, in the last 2 years here in Sao Paulo. And I'm 61 years old and I've been a musician.
Looking good for 61, go on.
Been a professional musician almost my entire life, and I'm married to a Brazilian actress, director, and we have a daughter who's soon to be 15, so my life is basically here in Brazil now.
That's great, amazing. Now Mark, I've got some questions for you.
Sure.
Shall we? First one, how did you become a musician?
Well, I always heard music a lot in my house. My parents played a lot of music. Ironically, coincidentally, Brazilian music.
Brazilian,
in the
yes.
early 60s, the whole movement of Bossa Nova, João Gilberto, Astor Gilberto, Tom Jobim, Sergio Mendes was big in the United States, and they had all the records. I listened to them when I was a kid. And I started on the trumpet, but I had braces on my teeth, so it was hard to play the instrument. I thought I had no musical talent and about to give it up. And my parents bought my brother a toy drum set for Christmas. And he played for it one day and put it away. And then I picked it up and started to jam alongside Brazilian records. And my father said, "Well, you have a good rhythm. Let's take drum lessons." And from there, I started playing in garage rock bands, and then moved to the guitar, and then went to music school, and the rest is history.
Yes.
That's how it started.
Well, that's really interesting, really nice. Now, tell us about your favorite performance venues.
Performance venues, I played in so many different ones. One of the most extraordinary was the Herod Atticus Theater, which is in Athens, Greece.
Oh, in Greece.
It's at the site of the Parthenon, the famous Greek monument, and it's an over 2,000-year-old amphitheater made of stone at the base of the Parthenon. So as you play the concert, it usually starts. I played it twice in the summertime. It's still light outside, and it's great. And as it gets dark, these light green lights come up inside to show the stairways inside the amphitheater. And as the sky gets darker, the lights on the Parthenon come up, and that becomes bright white light. And so I get chills even thinking about it. It was just such a cool experience to play there.
Yeah, I suppose so. All the architecture. That's.
And here in the Americas, as much in Brazil as the United States, we think of something as old as 200 years old.
Yes.
There, they think in thousands of years. So
nothing compared to
a different time frame.
That's cool, amazing. Now, what genre of music do you consider your work to be?
It's a difficult question because it's hard to put a label on me because I do so many different kinds of things. I have a strong jazz background, a strong rock background, strong blues background, heavy into Brazilian music. I have also a classical music side as well.
Maybe Bossa Nova as well?
A Bossa Nova as well, yes. But I write for orchestra, I do arrangements for strings and this kind of thing, and write to contemporary chamber music. So to me, the labels don't really apply. I have many different styles that I feel at home in.
Really nice, amazing. Now, who are your major influences?
Well, I guess you would have to talk about each different style. For example, in pop music, of course, the Beatles were the biggest influence on me growing up, and then specific instrumentalist Jimi Hendrix as a guitarist was an extremely important influence.
He was from Seattle.
He was from Seattle, yes. In jazz, Wes Montgomery, John Scofield, Pat Metheny, Robin Ford, all these guys are my idols, and studied a lot of their works. In classical music, contemporary music of the last century, I love Stravinsky, Anton Webern, Villalobos, the Brazilian composer, music, in Brazilian music, that I was lucky I got to play for 2 years in the band of Ivan Lins, the Brazilian composer, who was an amazing writer, and it was a great experience. And I played for many years in Astor Gilberto's band, which was the first singer of the girl from Ipanema.
Ah, okay.
So
Yes.
she lives in the United States, so I learned to play Brazilian music with the Brazilian musicians in her band.
From the core. Like,
Yeah, in the core, exactly. And
That's
but I love Caetano, I love Gil, Milton, Chico Buarque. There's so much great Brazilian music here to be explored.
Oh, that's amazing, really good, really good. Now, Mark, how is it to be a foreigner living in a country like Brazil?
It has its challenges.
Really? Tell us more about it.
Well, especially to go straight to Rio de Janeiro was
Yes.
extremely extreme contrast
Yeah.
from living in the U.S. because in Rio things happen in such a different fashion, for
Yes.
better or for worse.
Because first, Mark, you were living in Rio.
I lived in Rio for 13 years,
for
yeah.
13 years.
And the time thing is completely different. How when people set a time to meet, they don't show up at that time. Even for work. The first time I was hired to do a studio recording, it was to be from 2 to 5 o'clock, and of course, I showed up 15 minutes early to set up, and
Yeah.
the owner of the studio isn't even there at 2 o'clock.
Wow.
The owner shows up around 2:15, and then the producer shows up at 2:30, the musicians show up around 3, and then they say, oh, let's go for coffee, and we go down the street for coffee, and then we start at 3:30, you know.
Wow.
And somebody from, like myself, from New York, where time is money, you know, you would never do that because you're paying for each second.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the downside is that people don't respect the time so much.
Yeah.
The upside is that people aren't so nervous about the time either. So if you have to go an hour later, it's no big deal. And so it took me a while to get used to the time frame of things.
Yeah.
The social aspect of it appeals to me a lot because I like the way people leave more time for social things and leave more time for one thing to become another thing. You go for a coffee with someone and that becomes maybe you go to a movie, then afterwards you go have dinner and you go meet other friends. And where in the United States it's more compartmentalized. If I meet you for coffee, it's just for coffee from 2 to 3. Because at 3 I already have something else booked, and at 6 I already have something else booked with different people. So things are more organized and they're much more spontaneous in Brazil. People just allow one thing to become another, which I think is healthy and a nice way to interact.
Absolutely, you know, this time thing. I mean, I've lived in Canada as well. You know, if you schedule an appointment for 1, you need to be there at 1. It's like not. You know,
a minute after.
yes,
Yeah.
time, you know,
Yeah.
so that, well, I mean, after I came back here, it was like one thing that was driving me crazy as well, you know, because we have other things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, funny. And how did Brazil change your career?
Well, it's funny because before I came to Brazil, I mostly worked as a sideman, playing guitar in other people's bands. I worked for 10 years with Astrid Gilberto. I also worked with Darlene Love, who's a famous R&B singer. I worked for almost 10 years with Ute Lemper, who's a German cabaret singer, and freelance with many other different groups and styles. I played in Renaissance, this English rock band, for 3 years in the 80s, and just recently went back to touring with them a few years ago. So I was always behind the scene. There was always the artist up front, and I was behind.
So you didn't feel comfortable?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable. I just sometimes, you know, this expression: if you don't set your own agenda, you become part of somebody else's agenda. And because I was a good musician, I got called a lot to be a sideman, and it just became my life. And in Brazil, besides this little experience with the violins, people didn't call me so much for work to play. So I said, well, okay, I have to invent something.
So you had to
make a living. So I became a leader in Brazil and put myself there as the artist, as a singer. I always sang background, and then here I decided to sing lead vocals, and it was going well. So Brazil gave me this opportunity to be, and ironically, in American music.
In American music,
yeah. Because when I lived in New York, I did a lot of Brazilian music because that was my differential.
Yeah.
But coming here, it's like nobody wants to hear a gringo sing samba for more than one song, you know. So I said, well, I can do American music and sing without no accent, and I know the music inside and out. So it created a little world for me here.
Great, amazing. And tell us, how do you handle mistakes during a performance?
Well, it's funny. I had a teacher. I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston, and he used to have this expression: the first time it happens, it's a mistake. The second time it happens, it's a coincidence. The third time it happens, it becomes an idea.
An idea.
Because so much of jazz is improvisation, experimentation. And sometimes you'll play a note, and it's not the right note, but it's kind of curious. Remember it, and then you play it again. And then you play it the third time and you realize, oh, that's part of my style now. I like this note. It doesn't fit the chord progression, but it has a certain color to it. So when you're a jazz player, you learn to embrace mistakes, not look at it like a classical musician where there's a wrong note and you have to avoid it. You know, it's like, okay, well, that came out of my hands or my voice, and how can I use that? How can I bend it, move it to make it more pleasing or more striking? So I don't look at mistakes as with this moralistic view. Oh, it's a mistake. No, it's like, okay, that came out, and what can I do with it? So many discoveries, as much in science as in art, came about by the art of happy accident. You know, I think the guy who invented penicillin, something fell from a shelf into a pot of something, and it created this reaction. And it's like, oh, okay, I can turn this into something to save lives, you know. But it was started as an accident, so.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Now, what advice would you give to beginners who are nervous performing?
Yeah, the famous advice that I heard from George Burns, who was a comedian. They said he was 95 years old. So what advice would you give a young actor or a young performer? And he said, he used to have a cigar, and he said, always take your wallet with you on stage.
Your wallet?
Your wallet, because if you leave it in the dressing room, it could be robbed. I love that story. But addressing your question about nervousness, again, it comes from my jazz background, which is to embrace what you're feeling and not think about a performance as something abstract other than you. So if you're nervous, use the nervousness. Let the nervousness inform what you do. I mean, don't play nervously, but realize you're nervous because you're excited about being on stage. You want to do well and channel it. You know, make your performance more exciting, more.
Make it a good thing. Don't
worry about, oh, I'm gonna make a mistake, or just be yourself. You know, with so much music, you want to express what your musical DNA is, who you are.
Nice, that's interesting. Now, how do you see your role in society as an artist?
Well, it's interesting. I think it's twofold. I think on one hand, there's an aspect of it that's a comforter. You bring comfort to people. People have hard lives. They work hard, and when it comes time to go out and hear music, they want to relax, feel good, be happy, not think about the problems so much. So one role of an artist is to make people feel more happy, feel connected to other people, feel joyous. And then the other side is the provocateur. You know, the idea is the artist is to question. So you raise questions. You know, as being an artist, you have to question what came before you, what you accept that you're going to change, especially if you work. Pure music is different because it's abstract. But if you use lyrics, and you use words, even song titles, you can force people to think about things in a different way. So I think there's two sides of it. The side that you want to embrace people, and the other side you want to shake them up a little bit and make them look at things in a different way.
And I think as an artist, you have kind of not an authority to do so, but you have an exposure, right? Because you're playing for tons of people, right? And you have a voice, right? In this case, you have a
platform,
Absolutely have a
people
platform.
are there to look at you, and you have your responsibility to do something with that.
Yeah, that's great. That's nice. And let's get into some traveling questions, as I suppose you've traveled a bit, right? So, what are your favorite places in the USA?
Well, I'm from the New York area, so I'm biased about that city. It's one of the most unique cities in the world in terms of its demographics. I remember I was with my daughter in a subway when she was younger, trying to explain to her the beauty of New York, and we were in a subway car, and she would, let's just count the kinds of people we see here. And it was really funny because it was almost numerically to perfection that there were 5 Chinese people there, there were 5 Indian people there were 5 Hasidic Jews, there were 5 Arabs, 5 black people, and it was just like, it was really kind of funny. She said, did you set this up? I said, no, it just happened to be that. But I said, this is New York. This is a place where people from all over the world come to live peacefully by and large. Every once in a while there's some kind of, racial tension, but for the most part, there's millions and millions of people there who are different physically, so different from each other, and they all seem to work together. So New York has this thing that I really love about it as a city. in terms of physical beauty, cities like San Francisco are incredible. Yeah. It's one of the few cities, kind of like Rio de Janeiro, where you have mountains and ocean come together.
Nice.
And
the weather as well, maybe.
The weather, yeah. It's funny, San Francisco can be cold at certain times.
Yeah.
Even in June, because of the wind.
Yeah.
But physically, it's a beautiful city. New Orleans is an amazing city. I always joke that New Orleans is the most northern Brazilian city because it has this mixture of these different cultures and races and languages, and the music has a lot to do with the music of the north of Brazil in terms of its rhythmic structure.
Nice.
There's so many beautiful places in the United States, in the West, in Utah and Nevada. The national parks are unbelievable.
Yeah, amazing. Great, nice. And how often do you travel?
Well, I get to travel a lot with my work. Luckily, I've been many places in the world. I've been to Japan 6 times.
6 times?
I've been to Indonesia, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Israel, I've been to Europe, milhares, speaking Portuguese. many times. South Africa, South America, North America, the Caribbean. So, I'm lucky as a musician that
you get to
allows
travel.
me. Yeah, it's my ticket to go around the world.
Well, that's amazing. Now, do you prefer solo travel or with someone else?
I usually travel with other people. Either I'm traveling with my family on a vacation or with musicians in a group. So I rarely travel alone. Sometimes I'm doing this tour coming up with Renaissance, this English rock band, and everybody in the band lives in New York. So I'll travel myself to get there. But once I'm in there, we all travel together.
So you have some company.
Yeah. Travel is something I think, for me, is a shared experience.
Oh, nice. That's great. Now, what's your favorite place ever?
It's hard to say. I played in Thailand, in Phuket, 4 years ago, and we went to some remote islands there that were just so pristine, so beautiful. The water crystal clear. You just can't believe how beautiful and untouched it is. That was some amazing travel.
That's great. That's cute. Now, how many different countries have you visited?
Well, I don't know if I can add them up, but there'll probably be about 50 or 60. Probably, maybe more.
Wow.
Never thought of it.
So you have friends from all over the world?
Yeah, that's another great aspect of traveling, is you get to meet people all over the world, and I stay friends with them,
Nice. And you think you stay friends,
I have friends that, my very first trip to Europe was in Switzerland in 1986, and I still have friends from that trip I'm in touch with. Shortly after I made a trip to England, I still have friends from that trip. I have friends in Japan from every time I've gone there.
Yeah, I think nowadays social media help us.
I'm of the age when we didn't have that, so you had to write letters. So I stayed in touch through correspondence, physical correspondence, and now it's so much easier. And it's funny, my wife sometimes will joke like, what do you like about Facebook? It drives me crazy. I said, because I don't live here. I live here, my family's not here, my friends are all over the world, so it's a way to stay in touch.
Yeah, that's great.
And I said, don't you want to stay in touch with people from your past? She said, I go to the grocery store. I see the guy I met in junior high school. I'm from the same city as when we live in here. It's different than when you have people long distance away, and my family lives there. So I embrace social media for that.
That's great. Now, how did your relatives or your family feel about moving to Brazil?
Well, it was hard for them at first because, we come from a close-knit family, but my wife lived with me for 4 years in New York first, so they saw that she was away from her family, and then came my turn to move here, and then our daughter was born here, and we both work a lot here, and so they accept that this is part of what makes me happy, and we go back enough to visit.
That's great. That's nice. And why did you want to come to this place, to Brazil?
Well, because, like I said, my wife is Brazilian. I always listened to Brazilian music. I was very curious about it. The first time I came here was in '95 to perform with my band, and I just liked the place. The people are really warm. I come from an Italian family, so this Mediterranean thing, it's very passionate. I feel very comfortable. And in Sao Paulo, there's a huge percentage of Paulistas that have Italian in their background.
Italian, Japanese.
I like this cosmopolitan aspect of Sao Paulo.
Nice, that's great, that's great. And how long did it take to pick up some of the language, Portuguese?
Well, the language, it's a life's work, you know. I've been speaking it for a long time. I speak enough Portuguese that I'm, fluent enough. I can speak in different tenses. People understand me. I still have an accent. It's hard. My daughter speaks both English and Portuguese with no accent because we spoke to her as a child, and so it's easier to learn that.
But that's funny how you guys taught her, because you said that you only spoke English to her,
yes.
And your wife
only spoke Portuguese, And at first she would hear my English and not know how to respond. Then she would respond in Portuguese, but I insisted in English. Eventually, she started speaking English, and now we just speak English.
That's great.
And she watches all these series on YouTube channels in English, so she's got a good ear for it.
Nice, that's good. And how many languages can you speak as you've traveled a lot? And
fluently, only English and Portuguese. I know how to order food in many languages.
Really? That's good.
I'm studying Italian right now, and I can read it very well, but I don't have enough confidence.
You speak Italian menu?
Yes, I speak Italian fluently easily, yes. As you travel, you learn enough just to get by.
Cheers, the languages is like...
Right. You speak many yourself.
Yeah, man, I love languages, it's lovely how you can talk to people from different places, it's just amazing, right? And funny thing about languages is that, all of them, they have their level of passion and angriness, it's different, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, and do you prefer hot or cold places?
I like them both. Too hot or too cold, it can be a drag. So, I suffered a lot in Rio in the summertime, trying to perform in places. It was just too hot. And I think when I was younger, I loved the winter because it just was very active. I got a lot done. Now that I go back to visit the United States, I think my blood has changed because
really?
really cold. I'm not crazy about it anymore. But I like the fact there that the seasons change more dramatically.
Absolutely. The seasons are...
You got that in Canada,
absolutely.
right?
Seasons are really well defined. If we are in winter time, it's snowing, it's cold. Summertime is crazy hot, But we have this difference, because here in São Paulo, for example, we have the 4 seasons in one day,
Right.
So today, I woke up in the morning, it was cold, was almost raining, by the afternoon it became like
really hot,
so
it's more defined there what the seasons are, and then also you can look forward to the next season. Like, okay, I'm getting tired of the season. What's the next one?
And you get
3 months.
And you get to enjoy each season. You can go skiing, you can go hiking. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's good. And now, which country has the best weather, like around the world?
It's hard to say. Just in the country. Portugal has great weather.
Portugal.
Yeah.
Really?
Italy.
Okay.
South Africa has great weather. I haven't. The countries, many countries have great gradations. Like Japan can be really cold and really hot.
Absolutely.
There in the summertime when it was ridiculously hot and humid and also cold enough to snow.
Yes, because I think that's nice. When you get to enjoy every season. That's a new thing, right?
Yeah.
And now, Mark, as you travel a lot and you know a couple of cities, do you prefer to walk, take public transport, or take private transport?
My first choice is always to walk. I love to walk. Yeah, I walk. It comes from living in New York, where you can walk everywhere in the city. It's an island, so if I have to, I'll take public transportation, or I'll take my bike. Or I have a car that I use when I have to bring equipment, amplifiers, guitars to a gig. But I basically prefer to walk. I think it's the best way to see cities and use your exercise.
Yeah, because New York, Paris, for example, is amazing to walk. But here in São Paulo, it's like it's a huge city.
It's too far. It's enormous.
That's interesting. Now, would you rather see a lot of places or get to know one really well?
Probably both, because it's nice when you can get to know a place really well and go deeply into the culture. But my personality is such that I would not be happy just knowing one place. I have wanderlust. I want to go other places. And so probably yes to both parts of the question.
someone who has never been out of their hometown?
I'd say you owe it to yourself to leave because it's such a liberating experience to go somewhere else, to see how people think, how they react. Moving to another country, I mean, you don't have to move, you can just go visit, but moving was the best things that ever happened to me. I had to question all the values I was taught, all the assumptions I had made about everything, and see it from the eyes of the people who live there. And then through that, you formulate your own vision of the world, which is a synthesis of both what you were taught and what you have observed, you know.
Nice, amazing, great, interesting. And what's the most enlightening thing that your trips have taught you?
I think just respect for diversity. I think tolerance for people are different, and what you think is normal, they don't think is normal, and vice versa. And to realize everybody has their own way of looking at the world, and to respect it. You don't have to believe what they believe. You just have to respect that that's what they believe. I think so many of the problems in all of human history could be traced back to intolerance, people not accepting that somebody has a different point of view and want to try to convince them or convert them instead of just embracing that. That's why I love New York so much, because there's so many people there of different faiths, different cultures, and for the most part, they're all allowed to. I mean, in a way, it's the story of the Americas. North America, in particular, was the place for people who were persecuted for their religious freedoms to come and be able to practice their religion freely. It still is that way.
Oh yes, that's nice, interesting. And now, Mark, tell us, do you have any upcoming shows?
Yes, I do. Next Tuesday, the 24th of September, I'll be playing at the Blue Note in Sao Paulo, which is in the Conjunto Nacional, on the corner of Avenida Paulista and Augusta. At 8 o'clock, I'll be doing a tribute to Sting and the Police with my group. I'm doing a series of tribute concerts, and this one will be based on Sting and the Police.
Nice. And how can we reach you out?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Mark Lambert, Mark with a K, Lambert, _music. I also have a Facebook page. You can put my name in Facebook, you can find me. And I have an email, which is darling, DARLING 58 @gmail.com.
Okay, nice. I'll leave all your information down here so we can reach you out. That's nice.
Great.
Now, Mark, last question. Our interview is getting to an end. What can we learn from Americans?
Well, it's hard to say. What is an American? American is so many different kinds of people, so many different cultures that live there. I think Americans are good about understanding dedication and hard work and focusing on a goal. This sometimes can be the downside of Americans too, but the good side is that they persevere. We come from a culture that's by and large a meritocracy. It's not based on who your parents were, who your family name. It's more like what can you do, and so that's a good example of people just having an idea, devoting themselves to it, sticking to it. Being a musician is like that. It's a life's work. People often say, to be a doctor is hard. You have to study for 8 years, and architect you have to study for 10 years, and a musician you study for 50 years. You never stop studying. And so this American thing about applying yourself and keep working, I think is something good that people all around the world could learn from. They're not the only people in the world who do that, obviously, but as one salient characteristic of Americans, I think that's probably
amazing. That's great. I mean, I think we can take good things from all the cultures.
Sure, I've learned so much stuff from Brazilians here.
That's great. Mark, thank you very much. Would you mind performing the last song for us?
Sure. Be happy to. It's great being your guest here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So.
The more I'm with you, pretty baby, the more I feel my love increase. I'm building all my dreams around you. Oh, happiness will never cease. Nothing's any good without you. Oh, baby, you're my centerpiece. I build a house, a garden, somewhere baby, the more I feel my love increase. I'm dreaming all my dreams around you. Oh, happiness will never cease. Love is any good without you. Oh, baby, you're my center of the beat. Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Guys, if you've liked this video, please hit the like button down there, share with your friends, subscribe, and you can follow Mark to see much an amazing talent. You know, you can see him. And Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck
Yes.
with your YouTube channel.
Thank you very much. Okay, guys, see you. Bye. Good man.